blow anybody's bubble, but I've been teaching this class for 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it
Okay.
does come down to, look, everything is a challenge from a communication standpoint, but we, just so you guys know, and everybody's in attendance, and take this back to your market center. Every month, on the first week of every month, we do this exact same cadence. So you can come back anytime, because obviously Command is continuously training, so we're always adding things. But yes, this kwregion12training.com, you can always log in and join the class, or any one of the 5 classes we teach during the week. They are always recorded and always put up on our YouTube channel for you guys to rewatch. Great question. All right, so today, and I'm still waiting to hear an aha. So somebody give me something good. What are you loving? What are you learning?
I like the fact that you could do a QRL code on the flyers that you send out or on the postcards. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, right. Just generate. Google made it easy to generate a QR code, and we can just upload and add them to our flyers. That's a good point.
Mhm.
Yep.
Hey, David, when I got my signs made probably 3 years ago, told me to take off my QR code because very few people were using it. And that was when I ordered my signs, I guess I was at family reunion.
So you're right. So about 3 years. So QR codes came into existence a decade ago, and they died on the vine. They weren't. So there's a lot of challenges with it originally because the free applications were heavily advertised. They didn't function real well. They've kind of seen a resurgence over the last 2 years, give or take, maybe a year and a half. They've gotten very easy to generate, free versions to generate. Branding is concentric. Isolating them to landing pages and the directions and the ability to create them and swap them out has just made them real easy. And people's phones, the way that they read them through pictures now, without having to download and utilize an app, has changed that. So the question is, I understand where you're coming from, but that was the gap in the usage. And, I don't know. I mean, if I do them on the sign, maybe not. The question is, where are you taking them to? Right. They're good because signs have great, it's great square footage that I don't want you to waste. So the question is, where are you going to take them to with that QR code, right? And
Well, it was taking them to my website.
but the websites do change, right? Because 3 years ago, we didn't have the websites that we have now. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Where's that QR code going to go, and how long is that going to be in existence? Because signs aren't cheap.
Well, it goes to my general, Terry Evans Realtor .com.
Yeah.
So I've had that since 05,
Perfect.
04.
And Brian, you bring up a good point with COVID, QR codes and maps and the way that we use them at restaurants for ordering is at the tip of the spear for a lot of that resurgence. Good point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead while I'm logging in, feel free to chat and put anything else that you guys learned in like this week. Today we're going to talk all about how do we get paid. You guys like to get paid?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. I always start this off as, so I've been in the business now since 07. So that's surprisingly 16 years at this point. And at that time, we still did a lot of paper. I mean, it was all paper, right? Some paper contracts, paper to the broker or whoever was processing checks. Green sheets on top, checking that I did everything. And my relationship with my MCA at that time was very, very strong. And it still is to this day. The MCA is the one that says, in case you guys are wondering, your MCA is the one who ultimately processes payments for you guys inside your market center. And this was even before ACH, right? So no direct deposits into our bank accounts at that time. That's still relatively new for a lot of market centers. But my relationship was always like, hey, am I missing anything? Did I do anything wrong? Can I fix this? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Somewhere along the line, and don't take this personally, our associates have taken, I see this a lot with our kids too, putting the blame elsewhere. I didn't get paid. Why? What happened? What'd you do wrong? Take ownership of that relationship. Be sympathetic to the amount of processing is going on that side. My market center alone is 1,200 units last year. It's a lot of work for one person to process. Right. And for your compliance brokers in the market centers. I'm getting a lot of push here. Hold on. For your market, somebody is muted. Okay, so your brokers are reviewing documents, pushing back. You're missing signatures. You're missing initials. Take your time, review your documents, stay in curiosity, ask how you can do better, and master the systems and tools at your disposal, right? And have great relationships with that broker and that MCA around what you're doing and learning, because they're the ones that are going to be able to answer a lot of the questions on the ground. Like, I'm going to show you how to utilize the tool. What I'm not going to do is teach you how to write a contract, right? Most of your market centers do some sort of boot camp or contract writing class. When you do those things, make sure you do them inside of command so you get comfortable with it, right? They're the ones that are going to answer your questions, but we're going to show you how to process and get paid, because that's important. Now, if you're all in command, you can follow along. If you all have opportunities in play, I think you want to kind of, we'll talk through some of that. And remember, I don't know if anybody's on this call, today's Thursday. This is not the DocuSign class, that's tomorrow. And if your market center doesn't utilize DocuSign, tomorrow might not have been overwhelmingly valuable for you, but today's class will, because whether you're using DocuSign or not, we're going to talk a lot today about how documents get submitted and where, and then we'll carry it into tomorrow about pulling documents back and forth. All right. So to get started, in order to get paid, okay, there are things that have to be in command first. So who knows what the very first thing that has to be in command in order for you to even get to the point to get paid?
Well, your buyer has to be under opportunities, or your seller, whichever your client is.
Correct. And you kind of, right, so you can kind of skip the step. At the very beginning, they have to be in your database, right? I can't even create an opportunity yet if they don't exist in my database, right? So in order to write an offer, process commission, I have to have a contact, right? Buyer and or seller. So you have to have a contact. So let's kind of start there. You all know how to put contacts in. We kind of discussed that earlier in the week. So take a look at it. But I want you to just kind of open up a contact card. And if you have a test record or a test card, you can do that. That's fine. Test is good. So yes, contact is first. Then you have to create an opportunity, right? Are they listing, or are they buying, or are they doing a lease? Okay, that has to be in the system. Then, okay, you got to write a contract. So we have to sync that opportunity with DocuSign. And it pulls details and information back and forth so we can write the contracts. They go out, they get signed, they get ratified. Then they come back into command as an executed document. Right, we're going to see things today that stages that out. But remember, there's a couple different stages in execution to get paid, right? So the first thing is active. So I either have to have a buyer broker agreement in place, or B, a listing agreement in place, right? We know, or at least I hope you all know, remember this is being recorded, so in case there's any top secret brokers on the call, you cannot show and write contracts without a buyer broker agreement. You guys do understand that, yes?
Can you say that again? You kind of broke up on mine.
Yeah, you cannot show properties, you cannot write an offer without a buyer broker agreement in place. That's the law. Okay, do many of you do that? Sure, you do it without that, right?
In all honesty, that's in the state of Virginia. It's not a law in West Virginia. Just for everybody's information. But why wouldn't you? But why wouldn't you do it?
It should be, absolutely, because it protects you, right? And here's
Correct.
where you come from. And I'm going to come from honesty here. Earlier in my career, I did not use them all the time. Okay. So one, there's a consistency issue with when I pick and choose. So that's a broker no-no one. Okay. Broker no-no two is that people will burn you, they will lie to you, they will use other agents, you will show properties to them, you will drive them around, you will buy them coffee, and they will write contracts with other people. You got to protect yourself. So don't be scared to have the right conversation, okay, about representation. Right. The buyer broker agreement in Virginia came into play in 2012. So it's been around for 10 years. Right. It's standard for 10 years. So if you're not comfortable with saying, hey, I represent you, right? Then you need to have conversations with how to get in front of the person and how to have that conversation. Okay, know that contract, know your worth, know your value, and do not show people properties unless they are under contract with you. You will get burned. Easy to say when you've been in the business a while, harder to say when you're new and you're desperate for business. Don't be desperate for business. Been there, done that too. Okay, spent way too much money taking people out to lunch and buying them coffee because I thought that was a way to run my business. Right? Protect yourself. All right, so buyer broker agreements, listing contracts. They're one and the same when you think about it that way. So there really shouldn't be that much of a difference other than we're scared to ask people. It's really what it comes down to, right? Then the contracts. Then, okay, once we get a ratified contract, whether we're the buyer or seller, we have to put the offer inside of command. We have to accept the offer. Okay. We have this listing, a 3-bet, right? We're going under contract because it's ratified now for $500,000. Perfect. Put that in the system. Submit your commission agreements, right? You have to have your documents into your brokerage. Again, I'm going to talk to Virginia here, and I'm sure West Virginia is very similar, within 48 hours of ratification. Right? 48 hours. Now, I also will challenge you that most brokers or agents do not submit their documents within 48 hours. Okay? You're under contract, you have a buyer broker agreement. Don't wait to write the buyer broker agreement until you wrote an offer. Right? Those things have to be in 48 hours. Okay? Put them in the system. Ratify a contract. Submit your paperwork to the market center. Submit your commission agreement to the market center. And if things change after the fact, then they change after the fact. It's okay. But that's the process. So we'll walk through this. You can see how that's done. But I want you to start thinking in your mind, am I doing things to make lives easier on the people that are most important to me getting paid? My broker and my MCA. That's why I talk this way. Because if you wait till the contract is closing at the end of the month, and you're expecting to get paid the next day and you haven't submitted anything, shame on you. Don't put the burden on them. You had that contract ratified for 20 plus days at that point, and you didn't turn in your documentation. Conscious of that, okay? Does that make sense with everybody? I always like to bring a lot of realness to what we're talking about. And for newer agents, they don't grasp that. So that's why we take a different look about the whys. Your market center also has to understand profitability. When are they going to be profitable for the month? All of your market centers close their books every month. So in order for them to understand their profitability and where they are each month, the earlier the paperwork is, the better they can forecast where they're going to be and how much time do they have to spend. How do they know how many contracts are closing at the end of the month? Because here's what we know. For some reason, at some point in time, everybody decided, and I understand down payments and things like that and taxes. Everyone wants to close on the same day, the last day of the month. That means all the commissions are coming in on the same day, day of the month. So notice that your MCA's door shuts down for 3 days at the end of the month because they do what's called transmittal. They're closing the books for the month. Get ahead of that. Make your lives easier. Have all the paperwork in. And don't be banging on their doors saying, "Where's my paycheck?" If you hadn't done all your due diligence. Carrie, right? You're feeling me, yeah? Little broker love there. All right. So let's jump into any contact card that you have at the ready. Okay, and I always use a test account for this. Where's he at? Share my screen. So I'm inside of my command account. All right. Everybody see my screen? Can I get a good visual thumbs up? Awesome. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and select the contact that I have here in my data bank. Now, on the contact card, the reason I start here is because most of you, when you start writing or working on an opportunity, are going to be on a contact card. You can start from the opportunity, and I'll show you where that's at, but it's, most of you will start from the contact record. So I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. There's a subtle difference between starting on the contact card versus the opportunity. And that's basically attaching it to the client. So across the top, you see the word opportunities here? That's where you're going to go. So first you got to have a contact, second, you got to have an opportunity. So let's go into opportunities for the contact. Hit create opportunity. Okay, and your dashboard is going to open up. And it's going to ask you, now I'm in multiple market centers, so I have to make sure I pick the right one. Opportunity type. This is the first thing that's really important to doing this the right way. Okay, because there are different types of transactions that we do: buyer, seller, landlord, tenant. Right? They all have different types of contracts and documents that we have to do and requirements around them. When we choose it here, it kind of sets it in stone inside of our system. Once we've said, yes, create this opportunity, I can't change the opportunity type. Can't create a buyer when I meant to create a list. I have to start all over again. So take your time. And typically where I see these errors happen, right, is the people that didn't turn in the paperwork in time. The contract is now closed or closing, and they're in a rush. When you're in a rush, you make mistakes. Is that fair to say? All right. Except for Linda. Linda never makes mistakes. All right. So let's go ahead and let's just say we're going to do a buyer one. Oh, I see a hand. Go ahead, Candace.
No, sorry. I don't know. Sometimes when I move, my laptop just raises my hand. So sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. All right. So we're going to go ahead and make this a buyer contract. Okay. Boom. You'll see that the client will be attached because it's pulling it from the contact record. If there was a spouse attached, the co-buyer would be able to come in here as well. Okay. You would see them. Opportunity name will default to Todd Davis buyer. If I was doing a listing, guys, I would change this to the listing property address. Makes life easier to find things if we're looking for them, because questions come up, they're usually based around property address, especially if your broker or your MCA is looking for things. And what I also do, and what I do recommend, is that later in the transaction, after you've ratified, if you're on the buyer side, I change the name of the opportunity to the property address. It's just a little best practice for everybody, okay? You can have tags, right? If you built tags around opportunities, they're different than tags for contracts. So you have a contact tag database and an opportunity tag database. And what I do in my opportunity tag database is I'll use the title companies, the lender company, type of financing, right? I'll put those in there just so I know how the transaction was handled. So that's what I look at opportunity tags, right? You can say, hey, what's the estimated close date for this particular property, right? Because when you're doing this early, you don't know the close date because there isn't one yet. Or you could say time frame. What's the budget? What are they looking to spend? What's your average commission rate when you get paid? Is it 2.5? Is it 2.75? Is it 3? What's your number? And then the bottom says, where are we going to stick this? Okay, what opportunity? Because there are, right, types, and for each type, there are 5 phases. Right, that's what you see here, phase. Now, on this screen, you only see 3 phases because you cannot enter an opportunity for something that's already under contract. You have to start earlier than that. So if you made a mistake and you're now under contract, you didn't submit your documentation, you would start under the active stage and then move it. But you cannot create a new and jump directly into under contract or closed. Okay, so let's go ahead. But we're going to put in cultivate because that's what I want you guys to get in the habit of doing, is cultivating, right? Putting them in, creating an opportunity around when you establish a relationship with somebody. Right. If you have a conversation with somebody, right, you can put them in your database. You know who they are, you know, right, they know who you are. But the moment you have a conversation around representation or doing something, you don't have a buyer broker agreement with this, but you talk about what it might look like. They may need to buy a house or they may need to sell a house. That might be 6, 12, 18, 24 months down the road. At that point, you want to create an opportunity because you're going to cultivate a relationship with them. to get them to the point where they agree to work with you. This comes into tracking numbers and achieving goals. Okay. We don't touch on goals and training here, but there's a whole goals element that your PC coach, your team leader should show you how to set. And so you can track the opportunities that tell you, are you hitting your goals? Am I going on the right number of opportunities? Am I generating enough leads? Am I getting the right number of contracts? Because in the Keller Williams world, what do we teach you? If you want to make $100,000, okay, we backpedal from that, right? We trickle it all the way down and say, okay, if you want to make $100,000, what's your average price point? What's your commission price, right? Do you do more buyers and sellers, right? What's your closing rates as far as when you meet somebody that's going under contract? You back all the way down to a number and say, okay, great. Based off of making $100,000, you might need to generate, right, 120 contacts this year. And of those 120 contacts, you might need to create 62 opportunities. And of those 62 opportunities, maybe 30 of those are going to close. And if you close 30 deals, you'll hit your number. Right? So know your numbers, and opportunities will track you and let you know if you're hitting them. That's important. So one of the things you do when you leave here today, this week, besides awesome. All right, now I have stages in my system that may not exist in your system, because you can create your own. We'll get to that. All right, so I'm going to drop them in and say, okay, this is a cultivate relationship. However, they're in the 4 to 6 month buy frame. Then I hit create. The moment I hit create, it's going to show me that I now have a contact opportunity attached to this record. And under opportunities themselves, I'm going to see that this opportunity is listed. Okay.
David, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So under my opportunity stage, I only see 3 options.
That's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
I customized mine. You have some default settings. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to show you that you do have the ability to customize. What you can't change are the listing buyer or landlord, right? You can't change the phases, which are cultivate, appointment, under contract. I'm sorry, active, under contract, and close. You can't change any of that. Below that, when you learn to run your business, how you run the business, you can decide that, hey, there are different stages than the ones that they give me. And I can also build in checklists of what do I do when things get to each stage. And that varies from agent to agent. Your PC coach, your team leader can kind of help you figure out, right? Especially if you're brand new to the business, that's kind of the role of the PC coach or mentor to talk you through what do you do to run your business, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you will see some subtle differences in mine because of the customization that I've added to it. So just know that you do have the ability to customize. And what I will do, if somebody reminds me, I do have like a checklist that I can provide you guys. I'll email that out today as part of your follow-up package. If somebody would just shoot me an email, David, just one person. Also, I'll say, hey, Terry Evans, because you're on top of everything and I know you love these things. Would you send me an email to daviddonaldson@kw.com and say, David, please make sure that you share the opportunity checklist with the group. And I will make sure that you guys all get that. And then what you'll see are my opportunity types, stages, and checklists, and my opportunity tags that I use in my system. Would that help you guys? Great. All right. So now we see that this is here. Now, if I click on this, it's going to open up the details that I just created, right? Around that opportunity. Now, every time you talk to this person, you're probably going to be updating these details a little bit because you're getting further and further in the ability for them, right, to get into doing something for you in business. So you might update, hey, that they're now pre-qualified, or maybe that you know what type of lending they do, or maybe their timetable has changed. Maybe you actually had an appointment with them, or you scheduled an appointment. Who knows? Maybe they even sped up the process on you, right? And you ended up writing a contract. Because I will tell you, if somebody tells you they're 6 to 12 months out, they're probably 2 to 6 months out. Right? They always lie about the timetables because they want to feel rushed. So if you wait because they gave you a date, you're going to lose them. Don't believe them when they tell you. Okay? All right, so here's kind of the details around what we just created, right? We've got key information, key dates, property information. We're going to forget about this stuff over here from right now. That's not necessary for today's class. But you can edit these details by clicking on these little editing pencils here. All right, so if I need to edit any of these details, I just click on my pencil. Right, I can change and say no. I didn't mean to put them in Cultivate. I actually scheduled an appointment with them, so I just changed that appointment date to a scheduled date. And my appointment scheduled date, you'll see that I can actually put the date in here, is actually going to be the 14th. Now, when I've actually, I'm sorry, the appointment scheduled was today, which is the 9th. I always twist these. The appointment scheduled is the date that I scheduled the appointment. The appointment date is actually on the date that I'm going to have the appointment. That's the difference between the two. Agreement 1 would be like, hey, on the 14th, when we had our appointment, if I got them to sign a buyer broker agreement, then I would put the 14th as the agreement 1 date, right? That doesn't necessarily mean ratified contract date. That's agreement 1. I took a listing agreement or I took a buyer broker agreement. Contract date, right, is the ratification date for a lister or a buyer. And then close date is close date. When is the transaction going to close? All right. What's their budget? Maybe that gets updated, right? What's their finance type? Okay, I've learned that, hey, they're going to use, they're going to be FHA. They're adding some mutual acceptance date. So TW is adding stuff in here, and every state uses things a little bit differently. I don't know if they mean by mutual acceptance date, ratification date is what I'm thinking they are here. So we'll get some clarity around that. Home inspection date, approval date. Now, I don't know if you guys are seeing these dates on your side yet, because I am labbing some of this. So not everything that I have on my screen are you seeing yet as far as dates go. But this is where we're going, because we're going to get a more dynamic timeline around triggers and dates that are happening in our contract. So if you're on this screen, you may not be seeing these dates. Is that accurate?
I
Okay.
saw it the other
Oh, you
day.
did see it? Oh, okay, good. They launch things sometimes publicly and don't always tell us that, hey, this is stuff live until I stumble across it sometimes in training. That's just how that goes. So awesome. Commitment date, loan application date, escrow signing date may mean different things, different states, different people. So I don't go too much into definition here, okay? And then when are they going to sign at the title company? So go ahead and hit save. And then just update. So every time you talk to them, you could update it. All right. Now, I also said you're going to cultivate a relationship with somebody, which means you create an opportunity. Not all of those opportunities are going to end up at the closing table, right? The further into the process, the higher chance you get that that is going to close, right? If I had a buyer broker agreement or a listing agreement, there's a good chance I'm going to close on a deal from them. For me, it's actually about, I think in the last 10 years, I've only had one contract for a listing not sell, right? Buyer brokers is probably about 80%, because different things happen. But earlier than that, when we're talking about contracts, sure, things fall out where they're not going to work with you for one reason or another. And so when you're tracking your numbers, you're tracking your productivity, up on the top right-hand side here is this lost opportunity button. And basically what we're saying is this, okay? You decided because of the conversation you had that it was worth creating an opportunity, right? Terry told me that she's going to buy a house in the next 12 to 18 months. She knows that I'm a realtor. I know that she's looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths in Tays Valley, West Virginia. Okay. I know enough to say, hey, all right, now I've got her on the hook. I got to figure out how to close her. So I created an opportunity. Now, 6, 7 months later, something happens in Terry's world. Could be any myriad of things. She just decides that she's going to stay where she is. A life event happens, or this will happen. Her cousin George just got his real estate license, and she feels because it's cousin George, she's got to work with cousin George. So she's no longer going to work with you. Don't take it personally. It happens. Okay. So now you're no longer working towards getting Terry to work on a deal with you. So you would mark that as a lost opportunity because she's no longer going to work with you. And you no longer have the opportunity to try to get her to work with you. Does that make sense? Right? Because when we talk about the language of real estate, what are your conversion rates? This is how you're learning. A
Hey,
lot of
David.
agents are scared. Hold on one second. A lot of agents are scared to be honest with themselves and don't do these things, and they just archive them and make them disappear. I'm telling you, to get better, you got to know your conversion rates. In order to have your conversion rates, you got to know what a lost opportunity is. Go ahead, Terry.
All right, let's say that you're the listing agent, you got a ratified contract, they did the home inspection,
Mhm.
you went through all of the paperwork, avoiding and releasing the escrow funds. So I sent in to our broker in regards to the release of contract. Should I have hit the lost opportunity there, or is that just for somebody you're working with?
Yeah, so a lost opportunity or a release of contract, that's just something that fell out of escrow. You're still going to sell that house, right?
Correct. I am still selling the house. I do have
So you
another
didn't lose the
contract.
opportunity. You didn't lose the opportunity, just that contract fell out. Right, so
Correct.
that means, so great question. An opportunity is created when somebody's going to do something. They're either going to buy, sell, invest, or be a tenant or a landlord, right?
Okay.
And inside of this, you may have to do multiple contracts. You do not create an opportunity for every contract. You create one opportunity per person based off of what they're doing. So if you have a seller that's going to work with you to sell their home and buy a home, that's two opportunities. It's an opportunity to sell for them. It's an opportunity to help them buy. If in this market, they're probably going to get multiple offers on their sale, right? It's still one opportunity with multiple contracts behind it, okay? And even as representing a buyer, you might have to write multiple contracts for that buyer. It's still one opportunity.
Okay, so what I did is then I put the release of contract and then I submitted it to,
We'll get
or
there.
resubmitted it.
That we'll get there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's further into this process, and you're doing things that a lot of people just won't even understand yet.
All right, I'm
We'll
sorry.
get there. That's more on the DocuSign and submission side than it is on the opportunity itself. We will get there. All right. So I want to get you guys a grasp in the concept of why you would mark something as a lost opportunity versus archiving an opportunity. Okay. So so there's lost, and I'm going to show you where there's archive. Archive is where you make something go to disappear. Like, so if you created a test contact and a test opportunity, then you can archive that so it doesn't affect your numbers. Lost opportunity means this person is no longer going to work with you, depending on no matter where they were in the buying cycle or sales cycle. Does that make sense for you guys? You're not going to understand that 100%, especially if you're new. Talk to your PC coach, talk to your mentor, talk to whoever's helping you build your business. They'll give you clarity around that. All right. Now let's look at the opportunities details dashboard, okay? Which is over here, because you may go in here, because this is kind of what I call your digital whiteboard. All right. You'll see listings, you see buyers, you see leases, okay? You see your ratios of what's going on in your world, you see your activity. And then if you have any closings this month, then those will show up as well. And that's everything you see on this main page. Then if you work from left to right, okay, what you see under listings are those phases I've been talking about. Cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and close. You cannot edit those. Everybody's the same. And you're working that relationship from cultivate to close. Now, people may sometimes jump in with you at the appointment phase. Sometimes you might have a relationship with somebody that says, come in and list my house for sale, because you know them. We call that, and that will jump right into active. You don't jump right into under contract or close, right? Unless you have pre-existing relationships. I used to have some investors who say, hey, we're writing on this property. So that's few and far between, but I would still start them under active. All right. And all the way to the right, you see potential income and probable income. Okay, here's what these numbers mean, because we like to have fun with you and gamify the systems, right? Your potential income is the total value of everything in this listing portal. Basically saying this. You see this volume amount? I have said, hey, I've got $7.9 million of potential volume in my cultivate phase. Is all that going to close? It'd be great if it did, but maybe not. Okay, so it's total volume for all stages times that commission piece that I showed you guys when you entered, whether 2.5, 2.75, 3%. So that's your potential income. If everything were to close, that's how much you would make. Okay. Probable income is a little bit different. It's volume times commission times a percentage that you'll see here in a minute of what the likelihood is that this contract will close based off of where they are in the cycle. Right? If I have somebody cultivate, I probably have about a 10% chance of closing. If I have somebody under active, I have a 60 to 70% chance to close them. If they're under contract, right? On a listing side, I'm probably about 96, 97% chance to close. So it's calculating those percentages. You don't actually earn anything but 100% or none of it. You guys understand that, right? You don't earn a portion of the commission as you're working through your transaction. You either get them to the closing table and get paid whatever you're supposed to get paid, or if they don't get to the closing table, you don't get paid at all. So this probable income is just kind of a little fun with numbers to say, here's what you're doing. These two numbers will probably never match, right? Unless you have one or two deals in here and you're not building it the way I tell you why. And then lastly is close. You notice that 0 is here. I haven't any closings this month, but they will drop out of this close phase after about 45 days because they allow for processing and paperwork. And because we close our books every month, this kind of resets to 0. So think of this as a month at a glance. Cultivate, appointment, active under contract will be everything that's in there. Close will show whatever you close this month, and then next month it will reset to 0. Doesn't mean they're not there anymore. They're just not there on the dashboard page, right? They would now live under my all opportunities section, which looks very much like a whiteboard. Okay, and I could filter by closings, right? If I said, hey, just show me everything that's closed, I could go into filter. And I can narrow that down by date. I can narrow that down by listing or buyer or landlord or tenant, right? So I can filter my data. And so that is all right here in here, okay? Now, slow, because I'm streaming and training at the same time. I understand how that works. Questions so far? You have a contact, create an opportunity, put the opportunity, price points, data, right? Commissions, what type they are. They end up on your opportunities dashboard, and your process does move them forward. And then you can see everything on the display. Questions so far with anything that we've just kind of talked through?
David, when you've got a client that's going to sell and then buy, you do
Mhm.
two separate opportunities.
Yes.
Obviously, do you need to have two separate contacts? You know,
Nope.
basically the information's the same, so.
Right, no, because the contact is one. So if I remember, I'll just go back to Todd Davis here real quick. You can create multiple opportunities, right? Because I might have an investor that's buying 5 or 6 properties, right? I've had that with some of my people. So that would be like 5 or 6 different opportunities per person. So there's no limit, but there's one contact would have multiple opportunities.
Okay, thanks.
And like I said, if you had a buyer or if they were buying and selling, that at minimum would be 2 opportunities, right? Good question. Always like to hammer those home. All right, let me go back to my opportunities dashboard. Come on. Now let's take a look inside the opportunities, because what I told you, there's some customization that can happen, and you're going to move people from cultivate to close at some point in time. So there's a process to doing it to make your life easier. Okay. So I showed you on the details page, you can go through that drop down and update it there. That's one place where you can do it. Okay. The second place that you can do is right here on this screen. So if I was to go into here, I'm trying to think, I think I put him in the payment pages. I made him a flyer. They go into my account quick, close some more windows. Where's processing going on in the back end? just so you know, if you're ever on Zoom and you're streaming your picture and you're streaming and training, it just sucks up all your bandwidth. The life of an instructor. Come on. Give me a second to reload that. All right. My computer gets coffee. The bad thing, to just pour coffee on top of my laptop. Come on. All right, she just locked up on me. Hold on one second. Just doing a quick reboot while this is loading. Any questions so far? You guys are all mastering this already? That's what I thought. So I can pick you guys to be the next group of trainers, right? And for all you guys not with your cameras on, and if I gave you guys all a test, you're all gonna pass, right?
Sure.
The cameras.
Absolutely.
Right, Reba?
I was the one that said sure a moment ago when you weren't looking at the screen.
I know.
Hey, guys, while we're in this intermission for a minute, I just wanted to let you know that I did post an event that our Keller Williams Leesburg office is having. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. It's going to be a great event. We're having 25 different vendors. So I hope that you can make it for April 18th. So save the date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always good to share information. Let me ask you this, because I haven't kind of rebooted everything. Is anybody seeing any sluggish opportunities on that side, or is it just because the network I'm experiencing where I am currently sitting?
No, my Zoom been acting up a lot during this training. I don't know why. This is the first time this happened.
All right, so I'm just going to talk while this loads a little bit. So inside of any one of those opportunities, okay.
See, we're not seeing your screen at all. We just see all the
I know
people.
I'm not,
Okay.
there's nothing to show at the moment. I was asking on your side, like if anybody is following around, are you seeing a sluggishness for you personally? I don't know if it's just I'm in a hole here, but I cannot get this. I just can't get it to load at the moment. Which, you know, I'm not wearing my Tech Happens t-shirt today, but you know, it certainly does on a regular basis for me. You think I'm kidding? I have one. And I should wear it every single day.
Obviously, somebody needs to sacrifice a chicken and do some blessings and call a shaman out.
I don't disagree with that. And I feel awful when I can't do these things because it's completely out of my control. But all right, so if you were to open up any one of those stages, if you guys are logged into your own command at this point, okay? If you were to open up any stage, and if I just went with cultivate, you're going to see that, retry, hot, warm, etc. Those are where you're going to put this in. When we talk about, you saw on my screen, it said like 0 to 90, it's at 1 to 3, it's at 4 to 6. I added some additional stages to kind of outline how my mind works through processing the transaction to close or building my relationships with people. And actually on the upper right-hand side of that screen, there's an edit stage button. Okay. Now I know you're not seeing my screen at this point in time. And because I'm at an absolute internet crawl where I'm at the moment. So it's just not functioning for me. So I'm going to talk this through in my mind's eye. So on the upper right-hand side, you have an edit stages button. Have I completely locked up? All right. I think my system is about to crash. I have to do a hard reboot. I don't know if you're going to hear me. I'm going to log out and log back in. You all may need to do the same, but don't panic. My screen is completely locked up and my system just completely crashed.
You can go ahead and log out and reboot. Kyle had a problem yesterday too, so don't feel bad.
We'll give this one last shot. I'm impressed you guys are all still here and I appreciate you. Go ahead and get my screen back up. Just one screen. Let's see if that makes it a little bit easier. All right. All right, so as I was saying, from the opportunities dashboard, if I click on any one of those phases, and I just happen to be under buyers right now, cultivate, appointment, active contract, each one of those phases, okay, have stages. Now, think of this as like a Russian nesting doll. If you guys know what those are, there's little dolls that fit inside each other and they get really big, right? So think of the largest one as being the phase. You take that out, you go into the next level, and that's a stage. You pull the next one out and go into that, and that's a checklist. Okay, so think of it kind of the way that they're layered in that approach. So each one of my opportunities live inside of one of these stages as I move them forward. So if I have Todd here, which is the one I just created at the beginning of class, and I have him as a scheduled appointment. So if I take Todd and I'm like, okay, it's not, scheduled, right? Then I drag and say, we actually kept the appointment. Okay. And in that appointment, he kept it. And then I sent him contract docs via DocuSign. Okay. So now I have a ratified agreement. I can drag him to this active stage at the top. So that's just kind of how things for those people that use like what's called a Trello board, it's kind of how those function is the ability to drag and move things around. You see how easy it was just kind of drag those? Or you could edit them individually, okay, inside the details page. Remember, we did that from step 1. Now, customization, which I don't want you to worry about too much at this point. I just want you to get in the habit of having a contact, creating an opportunity, and moving them through the pipeline. But as you get more comfortable in growing your business, you're going to have checklists, which I'm going to send you. So you need to know, like, how do we edit and move the checklists themselves? How do we move them around? Okay. So inside of that opportunity, on the upper right-hand side, okay, and I was in the active portal for buyers here. Okay, I have this edit stage at the upper right-hand side. Each of these phases have their own set of stages that you can edit and create. So edit stages here at the top. You'll see the ones that you guys probably have right now, which is like showing negotiations or maybe retry. I've got a couple of different things built into it myself, as I mentioned. Here's those probability percentages that I have assigned. That's where they get for certain stages. There are checklists here, right? You can build, there is no default checklist. So yours is going to say 0 out of 0, unless you kind of build them out, right? So if I wanted to edit a checklist, okay, I just can click on the 0 out of 0 to 0 out of 3, okay? And then my editing window will pop up where I'll see what's there, or I can add an item. Okay. And then if I want to rearrange the order that they get done, I can drag and move them. Okay. And then the other thing that you see is this client update. So when you're running your business, what you're going to realize is at the end of every day, you're probably sending an update to your consumer saying, here's what I did for you today. Now, not everything you do you need to tell the client that you did. That's extra minutia work, right? But some things they need to do. And if you're active, right? If you're active contract, you might notify them that, hey, I called the sign writer. I scheduled principal photography. All right, I have my sign coming out. I have Missed Utility come out to survey the front of the land. To make sure we put the post in the ground and it doesn't puncture anything. Maybe we're doing a site survey because a plot hasn't been laid out for that property and we want to advertise it. Whatever that is, I have these check client updates items, which means when I get to that point in time of the transaction and I mark it complete, an email at the end of the day, one email, not an email for everything I did, one email will go out and say, here's everything I did today on your behalf. So you decide if you want that to go out, when you want it to go out, and what items on your checklist you want them to be aware of that you did. They love that aspect of it. So remember, Terry's going to email me, and I'm going to send you an email later today with my follow-up slide deck that's going to have checklists and stages for all of these things. So literally, you would just have to go in and build them. That way you don't have to think about it. That'll make your lives easier, okay? All right, so that's creating an opportunity, that's moving things around in an opportunity. It's adding the opportunity so you can see a way that you want to do things, okay? Now let's go back into the opportunity and let's look at the next set of things that you would have to do, all right? So across the top, you've got details, which we've been working on. There's a buyer profile. This is actually attached, right? This is a conversation when you're talking to your market center tech trainer and you're building out your website. There's actually a profile where they can kind of check through processes on their website and on their mobile app, where they can kind of communicate with you through the channel. So there's a buyer profile and a seller profile. Don't have the bandwidth to go into that this week, but that's a conversation for you with your market center tech trainers, okay, of setting up that process. Documents, right? This is where we start getting to how we tie things to DocuSign, right? So if I were to click on documents here, because I'm at that stage where I need to write a contract or a buyer broker agreement for this particular client, okay? On the left-hand side, right, I would see that I have residential property, okay? Now, my screen and your screen is going to be different because every market center's requirements are different as far as what documents they require their agents to use and how they build up this drawer. So I'm going to talk as an overall, kind of show you what I'm seeing will be similar but subtly different on your side. So you chose that you're doing a residential transaction, and you're going to see there's a consultation phase, an under contract phase, and a close phase. Okay, folder, not phase. Consultation phase is where the docs live that you need to do when you're going into buyer broker agreement. There's your buyer broker grade agency agreement. If there was a trust, so that's conditional because not every offer is using a trust. UT is a disclosure that my market center uses. Cybersecurity notice is a disclosure that my market center uses. And the DPR long form is a requirement of my market center that we have to have signed off by every agent. So outside the buyer broker agreement, your market center may have different documents in here saying you have to have. I can't talk to that locally. I can only tell you that they should have them marked as what's required and what's conditional based off of where you're on the contract. Fair? Below that, you've got under contract. So when you're under contract, here's documents that are required to be ratified. In my market center, I have to have a tax record. I have to have the fully ratified contract. I've got to have the copy of the earnest money deposit or proof of funds. And I have to have a copy of the listing agreement. Right? If it's in the MLS, that's why that's conditional. Not all listings are in the MLS. All right. And then when we close the transaction, I have to have a copy of the walkthrough. I got to have a copy of the DA. So basically, the closing docs will go into here. Yeah, it just doesn't want to open up again.
Hey, David,
Yeah.
did those document requirements automatically show up?
If your market center provided them. My market center, so this page is custom to the market center. So your broker and your MCA should have a page that looks like this. Okay, after you've chosen like what's your type, right? I'm doing a residential opportunity, right? These should populate automatically. If they're not populating for you based off of that, then I would have to, what market center are you in?
Chesapeake Greenbrier.
So then I would tell you that, hey, you need to talk to Jerry.
Mhm.
Or Jerry or Jason or Cosette and say, hey, I'm in my rooms and I'm not seeing, and because my guess is if I'm thinking that market, your market center does not use DocuSign,
No.
but your checklist should be similar to a degree. So they may just do a different process.
Well, I only got the links. The documents is only showing under contract. The other two, consultation and close, there's nothing.
That's just the way that they chose to do it.
Okay.
Right. My market center uses all three folders. Your market center is just doing under contract. And under contract, so is the buyer broker agreement under contract? So that's why I'm careful to saying, hey, you must have certain documents, because every office is different about what the requirements actually look like. So that's why some things are a follow-up conversation in your market center around contract writing and submission of documentation, okay? All right, so that's what that would look like for you. Now, for those of you that are going to use DocuSign, and we're going to kind of take a dive into this tomorrow. All right, so if you're using DocuSign, this applies. If you don't, then you're going to be pulling things up from your computer. You would browse your computer and you would upload the documents. Okay. For those that are using DocuSign, there's a streamlined integration process. I'll go into more detail tomorrow. Okay. But it's important to know that the first time you log into your DocuSign account for an opportunity, you do need to do it from command. Okay. You do need to do it from command, because that's what allows command and DocuSign to talk to each other, and for me to be able to just go in and see the DocuSign rooms folder and just zap those documents over without having to download and upload my PC. Your market center does not use DocuSign, as I do know that Greenbrier does not, right? Then you would have to do a manual upload process from your PC to get those documents in for your requirements. All right. So the first time you go into a room for an opportunity, you would click this start a transaction button, right? You should have at this point, and if you don't, you would go into your settings and make sure under settings you see a DocuSign connector. If your DocuSign connector is not in play, okay, after you get off of this call today, I need you to talk to somebody in your market center and say, hey, my DocuSign account is not synced. They will make sure that that's synced for you so that tomorrow you'll kind of see how this all happens. Right, because you have to, I can't in this class walk you through it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Somebody at the local level has to kind of say, yep, no problem. You set it up, you follow the steps, it's a process, you sync your email address, and they talk to each other. It's not hard, I just don't have the bandwidth to kind of walk you through setting it up today. But you will know, because when you go into settings, okay, that DocuSign will either say connected or not connected. If it says not connected, okay, then I need you to talk to your market center tech trainer, PC coach, broker, DFI, AAC, team leader, whomever, and say, hey, my DocuSign is not connected. And it should look like this if it is. It should say connected status. If it's not connected, it'll say get connected over here, and it'll walk you through that process. All right. All right, let me go back to the opportunity again that I was working on. And the document. So create a contact, create an opportunity. If you're going to write contracts by a broker agreement, then you have to sync DocuSign and Command together the first time. Then they will always talk to each other and they will update data back and forth. There's a deeper dive tomorrow. Okay. After all contracts are in and submitted, okay, ratified contract, you're going to submit a request to get paid. Okay, in order to do that, of course, this is all buttons. So I did want to go into the settings page. In order to do that, okay, you would have to go into breathe. Training takes a lot of technological patience too. There's things that are out of my control. This might be the day that I just go out and get my own booster bandwidth. All right. So what we just went through was the documents tab. Right? Deeper dive tomorrow through DocuSign and pulling things over back and forth. After you ratify, okay, you have to come in here to offers and commissions. All right. Because this is where you're going to tell the market center that, hey, I've ratified a contract, we're going to close, and here's the paper, or here's the ability for me to get my paperwork approved and how much money we're bringing in. Right. So you're going to go to offers and commissions. Wait, am I sharing my screen? Guess it would help them doing that. There we go. You guys see my screen again?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so I'm in the opportunity, right? Details, buyer, documents. So I'm moving on from documents. I'm in offers and commissions. You have to put some details in here because it can't read your contracts yet. We're at some point in time, we'll have the ability to scan a contract and it'll pull the dates out and create all this, but we're just not there yet. So we're just going to call this offer one for testing purposes, right? Now, whether you're receiving an offer because you have a listing or you're writing an offer because you have a buyer, doesn't really matter. We're tracking offers at this point, okay? Typically what happens is that if I have a listing, I get multiple offers. I do encourage you to put all offers in the system because you can generate a sheet that compares all offers for your seller, okay? Most agents, if they're representing a buyer, wait till they ratify a contract and then they put that accepted offer in the system, which I'm fine with. But if you have a buyer that's writing multiple offers and not getting accepted, I do recommend maybe you track them so you can go back and show them, here's in a spreadsheet format, offers we've written that didn't get accepted, why we're not getting accepted, because they offered low or S for certain terms, and you can kind of walk them through that. So that best practices, but makes most sense for people. Hey, if I got multiple offers on listings, I'm putting them in here, but on the buyer side, I may only put one offer. I get it. So you're going to create the offer. Okay, what was the offer date? Okay, what's your close date? Just gonna make one up here. Too much junk on my screen. Now, it says select from KWLS. So basically what you want to do, you'll be able to go into the system, select the listing, whether it's yours, your market centers, or anybody else's in the MLS. You'll be able to grab that listing and pulls those details into the contract for you, some of the details. So make sure like
David?
okay, so you see
David,
this.
is that new?
No, it's been there for as long as I can remember.
I don't remember seeing that select from KWOS, but that's all right. Sorry.
Yeah, well, this KWLS for all intents and purposes is our internal listing exchange. And all
I know.
we pull the properties, well, just tell for everybody else. For everybody else, we pull all listings from your local MLS. So they're all in there, right? Especially if you're a buyer, you're writing an offer, may not always be, especially in West Virginia, there's a lot of smaller brokerages, may not be a KW listing. All right. So now you'll see the property address automatically populated because I chose that listing, right? Oh, it doesn't like that address because I used the junky It recognized I was using a bogus address. It doesn't pull the seller's information. You probably won't have the seller's email address because you're not going to communicate with them directly. It will pull the listing agent's information in there. Ask you if you're pre-qualified or pre-approved. Right, your representation, yes, it shows on double-sided because I'm using dummy data. But the listing agent's information would populate here from the listing. What are the terms of your offer that you just wrote? Or that are ratified, right? So if they're paying cash, or what portion of cash are they putting down? How much are they financing? Right? How much earnest money deposit did they put down?
You know, I just went into mine to create as if I was getting paid. And it just comes up and says parties. Mine does not say KWLS.
I'd have to see it. All right, so because we're national, so there's different questions here, right? Option fees, not every location has an option fee. Termination fee, so I always use termination date as like, what is the last contingency that I have in my contract? And traditionally, that would be your finance contingency. We like to use 21 days out here, but it may be longer than that. But that's, I always put my last out contingency as my termination option date. If there was any seller contribution, I would put those in here. And then I jump out to agent analysis. So this is you kind of breaking down the deal for your consumer, right? Great agent. Below list price. I think you can counter. Oop. All right. Then I would say that be careful what you say here, because if you send this over to your consumer, they're going to see what you say. Right. So if you say something negative to yourself about the consumer, so this is you having a conversation with the consumer about the strengths of the offer you received or you wrote. Okay, for you and your consumer. You'll see that here. Okay. And then if it was accepted, you hit the accept button. If it was rejected, you hit the reject button, and then you could add a new offer, right? So if I had a listing where I got multiple offers, I would add each of my offers in here. And then I would reject the ones that I rejected, and then I would click the one accept that was accepted for ratification. Okay. And then this manage commission button pops up, where you're going to process your commissions for your market center. You're going to make sure that you have the contract date in there, which is your ratification date, right? Save changes, if you made any changes. If there are other agents on your team or in your office or you're splitting commissions with, that's where you add another agent down here, okay? We're not dealing with co-broker payments in our market center. So again, office co-broker payments is different than referral fees and things like that. So your office will talk to you how they want you to lay this out. But traditionally, if I'm adding another agent, that's an internal referral agent, that's kind of going here. Okay. You'll see your cap, you'll see what your splits are. This will calculate all against that. Okay, I'm not going to get into what yours are or not. For your royalties, insurance deductions, bold, whatever you set up for deductions will come across here. Okay. If you are in an area where you have additional taxes, like we have what's called a B-poll tax here in Northern Virginia, I can add any other deductions that I need to add. Right, I've got this add item here, or maybe I paid for the home warranty out of my commission. I can add that here. Right, so that's where anything that doesn't, hey, I need to add something here for a deduction to come off my commission, that's done here. I would always tell you, if you haven't done this before, the first time you're going through this, work with your PC coach, your mentor, your team leader, your MCA, just so you get that all done right. Now, look, mistakes happen, okay? If you process this and it is wrong and you hit submit, it does not mean you're going to get paid wrong. You just created a little bit more work for your MCA. They're always going to make sure that you're getting paid properly. Okay, they're always going to look out for you. They're always going to do the right thing. So if you submit the wrong information here, you can go in and edit it, right? Once that, but you can edit it up until the point that a DA is actually created. If something happened at the contract table, sometimes we have a commission acme that come up at the last minute, right? And you would not actually be able to edit it once a DA was created. You just have to notify your MCA, hey, we had a last minute change. This needs to come off the commissions. And they'll take care of all that. But that has to be submitted here. Now, once this has been submitted, right? Once your documents are submitted, right? Even though your broker may have signed some of your contract docs, your buyer broker agreement, they may have even signed the contract itself. It doesn't mean that there isn't something wrong with it when you submit it to the market center. They'll actually do a deeper review at that point, and they may return something to you. You'll see this in here. You'll get a notification update under this little bell at the top. You will see the push notification update on your phone. Hey, DA is about to be released. However, you're missing the ratification date on page 13 of the contract. Please adjust. Or hey, the buyer broker or the broker on the other side never actually signed the listing agreement. get that fixed. Or hey, the seller's initials are missing on the price change on the reduction on page 7. We know those things get missed and happen. So that's the little love notes that you'll get from your broker that will show up on your little bell, your bell notification, right? Inside of notes around the commission, and they'll push through to you on your phone.
I have a question, David. Wow,
Yeah, we got some echo.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
When you're on the commissions tab, where do you go to write a note to the MC?
I'm sorry.
So if you needed to make a change to the contract or the commission you were getting, where do you make a note to the MC?
You can do it. Well, you can do it under notes. If you updated and you made a change, one, you would swap it out here and then you would resubmit it. And on that resubmission, you can put a note in there.
And just,
Right. You can put, see where I clicked on notes here?
yes, okay,
Add note, and you can say, hey, I'm not gonna, I can say at MCA at broker, but you would actually mention them by name.
okay,
I have to make an adjustment to whatever.
okay.
And then reload and resubmit that document over top of the one that was originally there.
Thanks.
No, not a problem. Now, I do want to show you because this was a question earlier, I think Terry asked it, but hey, what happens if a contract, so you submitted all these documents and then this particular offer got terminated, okay? You don't necessarily wipe everything out and start from scratch. You actually would come to this, it's probably what happened under contract, right? Because your consultation wouldn't stay, but if you were, say you had a ratified contract, all right, see this under contract tab right here? You get to create a new version. You create a second version. I'm gonna make a note to myself, new offer. That wipes out all this here, although it wipes it out as far as on your screen goes, but it's still actually there in the background because you need to keep all those documents there, right? You have to have all that terminated documentation in the back end. So you leave it there, you just create a new version. So if you're now, in Linda's question was, hey, I updated, so she had to update a document because like an addendum or something changed, right? So she puts the new document in there. However, if the contract was actually terminated, and we're accepting a new contract, right? We don't start a new opportunity. We work within the same opportunity. What we create is another offer version for document tracking. This is overlooked and missed by most people, and they kind of panic in that situation and start deleting things. Again, if this happens to you, the best thing to do is to say, hey, I remember Dave said there was another version or something. I just can't find it. I get that. It's right there. It's a drop down, but it may be few and far between. You actually need to utilize that. So just remember that it's there and you can ask questions to figure that out.
Well, what I did, David, was I added the release that was signed by my broker. I submitted it. No one has reviewed it. And I've tried to put in my new ratified contract
And you can't.
and I can't
Right. Because you have to create a new version.
create a new version.
That's
Okay,
what I'm telling you, right? So in that situation, you have to put the release on the original contract docs, right? You would add your release, you would upload that document, and then you have to come in here and create a new version, which allows you to submit new documentation.
okay. Got it.
Yeah, that's because they have to hold on to those original contracts. So you can't override them.
I guess see what I did is I was waiting for approval for the release. And no one's approved it. So then I was just like, well, whatever. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go ahead. Add my
You're
new
not gonna-
documents.
Look, I'm not gonna knock brokers, right? But they're behind sometimes. And a broker's approval of a release, and we basically did release some earnest money deposit, you do want to make sure they know about it. But it's not gonna stop you from taking your contract, bringing it back to the market and trying to get a new, right? You've got to move forward with your business. So I would do whatever it takes, just make sure that they know, hey, I did submit a release, we're going back to the market, right? I would make sure that they knew that.
Right. And the thing is where it says under contract from the first one.
Right.
I have a little explanation or explanation sign. I don't know why. I've never experienced that.
No, and this section, this add comments, so I can
Okay.
actually, I can add a comment here. It says, hey, just an FYI, this fell out.
And I put a note in there. Okay,
Right, add Deborah. This also goes to Linda's. Linda, I would do this instead of notes. I would do it here. Right, and then that would be there. But again, all of you market centers don't know these things the way that I know these things, or they may all do things a little differently. So that's why I'll talk in general terms, but I can tell you this is definitely the way they should be doing it, is tracking additional versions of those contracts when something falls out. Remember, that's falling out. That's not, right? That's not, I made an offer and the offer didn't get accepted. This was, we were under contract, we ratified, and then it fell out during, or whatever happened during the contingency periods. All right, so with that, it is 10:30, so I want to be respectful of your time. I'm sorry that I had some hiccups on my end, but like I said, tech happens. This is probably the more complicated classes because there's a lot moving parts in the background. I do recommend you do this. Go create some bogus information in your system. Create opportunities, upload documents, okay? Play around with that. Even go ahead and as far as sharing contracts with each other so you can both play around with doing it, right? Find somebody else in your market center or somebody else in this class and say, hey, let's submit offers, let's share documents back and forth. It'll make more sense when we do DocuSign tomorrow because we're going to talk about sharing things and emailing. But working through the process, right, and uploading documents. So get with your market center tech center, get with your PC coach, get with your broker, whomever, so you get comfortable with these things. It takes time. You're not going to get it right the first time, and that's okay.
And then in order to delete that stuff, once you're really into, the groove, you just archive it.
You archive the opportunity. Yeah. So what I would do is I wouldn't submit it to my market center, right?
Oh, gotcha.
I would put the documents in so I get comfortable loading things. I would stop short of submitting that documentation to my market center, and I would not submit a commission agreement.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you want to stop short, right? And then I would go and I would archive the opportunity itself. That's correct. And then there's other things you can generate a transaction summary. You see that up here at the top. Okay. I can, right? What I need to know, like, so this is basically well, it's a transaction summary that gives you all the details of everything that goes on in a transaction. You could even go here. I don't have any documents loaded, but I could actually show April's happening, right? What happens in April? You guys know? It has nothing to do with Keller Williams. What happens every April 15th?
Tax day.
Tax day. So if I had a seller that closed on a property last year, is there implications for them and they're on their taxes? Right.
Sure.
So what I might do, or what I could do, if this was a transaction from last year, I could go in here, go into my close folder, click on their HUD, and email it to them so they have it.
So how would you access your old contracts?
They're all in here. Once your opportunity is created and all these things are submitted, all these contracts stay here.
Okay, they're just under like closed.
Well, closed is where all the right. All three of these folders would still remain, right? Your buyer broker agreement would be there. You're under contract. Your application document. Closed is where you're right. That's where your HUD statement would live, right? And your walkthrough.
Gotcha.
And then I would literally just go into my HUD, check on it. And when I check on it, because this is blank, I got nothing there. But I would have the ability to do something with it. I could either download it or I could actually direct email it, and I can email it directly to my consumer.
That would be convenient.
It's incredibly convenient. And again, it's something that a lot of people don't take advantage of. Like, it's another touch for you guys, right? We're talking about keeping you in front of your consumers on a regular basis. Reach out to, and don't wait till April to send it to them, right? But reach out to them in January or February and say, hey, I know tax time's coming. I just wanted to make sure you had a copy of your HUD. How's everything going? You're making their lives easier. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. Tomorrow we're going to do DocuSign. All right. there's a question here. It's gonna take a quick look. All right, so thanks for coming, everybody. Apologize for the inconvenience, but that we're good, right? So any other questions before I wrap up? No? Okay. So for those of you that don't use DocuSign, you don't need to come tomorrow. If you're not sure, check with your Marcus Thunder tech trainer. Either way, if you're not sure, right, make sure that your DocuSign account is connected so that when we do things tomorrow, you can actually get a better view of what we're talking about when I show you how rooms get created and access and sharing documents and editing, modifying documents. You're going to want to be able to get into your rooms. All right. So we'll see you all tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Bye,
David,
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.